This is Bill Prince, your storyteller, with the story of Rumpelstiltskin. Back in the Middle Ages, when knights were bold and kings lived in grand castles, there lived a poor miller. He worked very hard in his mill, grinding corn into flour. But in spite of his hard work, he remained poor. This didn't really worry him, because he had such a lovely daughter who helped in the house. Her name was Anna, and she knew everything about keeping house. So when it came to meal times, the miller was able to enjoy good, tasty meals cooked by Anna. When he came home from the mill at night, the house was always sparkling clean and tidy, and there was always a cozy fire burning in the fireplace. So in spite of not having much money, the miller did have plenty of happiness and peace of mind, both of which are much more important than lots of money. Every Monday, the miller used to load many bags of flour onto his cart to take to the royal palace, and there the page boys would unload the bags while the miller had a little rest. One day, as he was resting by his cart, he heard several of the king's knights talking about their daughters. "My daughter's the most beautiful girl in the land," said one of them, smiling with pride. "Maybe, but my daughter's so clever and intelligent, she can speak 3 languages, said another one of the knights. And so the conversation went on, each knight claiming that his daughter was so much better than any other girl. Now the king was listening intently to these boasts, and the miller, who was also immensely proud of his daughter, thought he should put a word in. "If I may be allowed to speak," he said, "my daughter's actually better than all the girls these gallant gentlemen have been talking about." There was a sudden hush, as all the knights and the king turned around to look at this poor miller, who had the nerve to speak like that in front of the noblemen. The knights all frowned at him as though he were a naughty schoolboy who had spoken out of turn, but the king had a smile on his face. "Who are you?" said the king. "I'm just a poor miller, your majesty, delivering flour for the royal bakery." "And what is it that makes your daughter so special, so much better than other girls?" "Well, your majesty, she can do everything. She's a wonderful cook. She keeps my house tidy and clean like a new pin, and she's beautiful beyond compare, and she's always kind and good-tempered and never stops smiling." "Other girls could also do those things. Is there nothing extraordinary she can do that other girls cannot do?" At this remark by the king, the knights all laughed and sneered at the poor miller, and he felt so foolish he didn't quite know what to say. Then, in his embarrassment, he said a very silly thing. "Well, your majesty, there is one thing my daughter can do that no one else can do. She can spin straw into gold." The knights all looked amazed, as well they might have done, for obviously no one can spin straw into gold, and the miller blushed a deep scarlet, for he realized that he'd been very foolish indeed, and having said that, he couldn't very well take his words back. The king, on the other hand, looked very thoughtful, and said to the miller, "Oh, so your daughter can spin straw into gold, eh? That is indeed a very useful accomplishment. I must see this daughter of yours as soon as possible. Tell her to report to the palace tomorrow, and she can spin some straw into gold for me." Well, now the miller was really in trouble, and he shook and he shivered in his boots when he thought of what might happen when the king discovered he'd been telling lies. He climbed onto his cart and let the horse take him back home, and there his daughter was waiting for him, with a good, tasty meal on the table. But he couldn't touch it.
"What's the matter, father? Why don't you eat your dinner? It's your favourite today, roast lamb with lovely green peas and thick, rich gravy."
No, my child, I cannot eat a thing. Something terrible has happened. I've just been to the royal palace.
"But you go to the palace every Monday. What's so terrible about that? Didn't the king like your flour?"
No, it's not that. It's just that I did a very silly thing, Anna.
I heard the knights boasting to the king about what talented daughters they had, and I was so proud of you that I also told the king I had a talented daughter.
Well, there's nothing very terrible about that. Come on, eat up your dinner before it goes cold.
Wait. When the king asked me what you could do, I told him that you could spin straw into gold.
Oh.
And now I want you to go to the palace tomorrow and spin some for him.
Father, what are you saying? No one can spin straw into gold. It's impossible.
I know, my child, I know. I could have bitten off my tongue as soon as I'd said it.
But what am I going to do? I can't disobey a royal order. I shall have to go to the palace. Oh, but what will happen when the king finds out that I cannot spin straw into gold?
Oh, 'tis best to be honest. Oh dear, I shall go to the palace now and admit that I was telling lies.
No, that you must not do. The king will be very angry. He may have you arrested and flung into prison. I shall have to think of something. Now, eat your dinner, Father, while I sit down and think hard.
In spite of all her thinking, Anna could not arrive at a solution to the problem. And the next day, dressed in her best clothes, she set off for the royal palace with a very heavy heart. She was met by a captain of the guard who escorted her inside the palace and handed her over to a major domo. He led her along several richly decorated passages until they came to the king's council chamber. She curtsied respectfully before the king, and he led her along some more passages until they came to a small room which contained a huge pile of straw and a wooden spinning wheel. The king looked very big and stern in his royal robes and said to Anna,
"There you are, my dear. This is your workroom. There is your spinning wheel, and there is the straw. Now, according to your father, you have the ability to turn this straw into gold. That rather pleases me, so when I return this evening, I should expect all this straw to have been spun into fine gold thread.
Yes, Your Majesty.
Your meals will be sent to you. You have nothing to worry about, so carry on."
The king left her alone with the straw and the spinning wheel, and poor Anna felt completely trapped. She sat down on the stool, and a tear trickled down from one eye, and then the other. And finally, she just sat there, crying out of sheer misery and fright.
What am I going to do? What can I do? When the king returns this evening, there'll be no gold, just straw. And now he'll probably throw both father and myself into jail.
While she was crying, she heard a cough in the corner of the room.
Oh.
She looked up and saw to her amazement a little man, not more than 2 feet high, wearing a bright red costume and a long beard.
Oh.
He stood there with his hands folded in front of him and winked at her.
Who are you? How did you get in here?
That's my business, young lady. But don't be afraid. I'm not going to hurt you. In fact, I think I can help you.
Help me? How?
Well, let me see now. The king wants you to spin all this straw into gold, is that right?
Yes. How did you know?
Magic. And you can't do it, right?
No, I can't. It's impossible to spin straw into gold. No one can do it.
That's just where you're wrong, young lady. You see, I can spin straw into gold.
You can? Really? You can really spin straw into gold?
Well, of course I can. It's all part of my magic power. And I'm willing to spin all this into gold for you, if you'll give me something in return.
But what can I give you? I'm only a poor miller's daughter. I have no money.
Well, I like that silk scarf you're wearing. It's lovely. Will you give me that?
Oh, yes, of course. Here, it's yours. Now, will you really spin the straw into gold?
Just watch me, big girl. Hand me a batch of straw. I put it on the spinning wheel, and away she goes.
Anna's eyes grew wider and wider as she realized that the strange little man was indeed spinning pure gold thread from the straw she'd handed to him. Soon all the straw was gone, and in its place were reels and reels of pure golden thread, glistening in the sunlight that came in through the window.
Oh!
Anna was delighted, for now the danger had passed, and the king was going to be very pleased.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, you don't know what a wonderful thing you've done for me. Oh, thank you again. I do hope you find pleasure in my silk scarf.
Well, just what I wanted. Love it. I can spin gold, but I can't spin silk scarves. It's lovely. I'll put it round my neck now. Well, I'm off now. Bye.
Bye-bye. But, where did he go? The door never opened, but he's vanished completely. And I never even knew his name. He must have been a magic elf or goblin. Come in. Oh, Your Majesty!
Good evening, my dear. Oh, you've actually done it. You really have spun all that straw into gold.
Yes.
I must confess I never thought you could, but you've really done it. This is fantastic. We must have a ball to celebrate your achievement.
Oh.
I shall send 2 of my ladies-in-waiting to attend you and dress you in the finest of silks and satin.
Oh, thank you, Your Majesty. You're too kind. Oh, I'm so pleased that I've been able to obey your royal command.
The ladies-in-waiting came for Anna, took her to one of the guest rooms in the palace, and dressed her in the most beautiful ball gown she'd ever seen. A rope of magnificent pearls was placed around her neck, and she looked as beautiful as any royal princess in the world. Downstairs in the royal ballroom, the scene was one of intense merriment. All the dukes, the barons, the knights and their ladies were there, all dressed up in their finest costumes, and the king paid special attention to Anna, dancing every dance with her. He was so courteous and charming to her that Anna fell in love with him, and that night, after the ball, she dreamt that she'd married the king and was sharing his throne in the huge royal palace. The next morning they had breakfast together in the royal dining room, and after they'd eaten, the king took her hand and led her along the corridors. She was so happy and said so.
Oh, Your Majesty, I do wish to thank you for being so wonderful and charming at the ball last night. It was the happiest night of my life. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine myself in surroundings like that.
Well, I'm so glad you found pleasure in it, my dear, for I too have found immense pleasure in you and your wonderful talent for turning straw into gold. Now, my dear, here is your workroom. I've had it filled with straw again, and I shall be even more happy with you if you will turn all this straw into gold by this evening.
Poor Anna. One moment she was floating on wings of happiness, and the next she was faced with the dreadful problem of turning another pile of straw into gold. To add to her problems, she'd fallen in love with the king, and suspected that he was falling in love with her. So now she couldn't even confess that she was unable to turn straw into gold in case the king banished her from the land forever. And she began to cry again.
Oh, what a mess I've landed myself in.